Tremendous, love it.
So I don't have to, oh! I don't have to use the mic, right?
No.
You can hear me? Okay, let's see, I want to start out, I came here specifically to give a reading in honor of Maria and Cecilia. And in honor and through the poetry of a great 16th century saint, Mirabai. Mirabai achieved what we understand from the Tibetans as the body of light, but it's slightly different in the Indian understanding. However, in that reading, I left out her signature poem. I forgot to recite it. So I wanted to recite it here for you. And I also want to say, in all humility, that I spent years and years studying this. It took 30 years before that book was published over there. And I rarely said a word about this study. And I was studying, Dzogchen with a master Namkhai Norbu. And one day, I'm off in the field somewhere, never said a word about Sanskrit or any of that. And I'm just in the fields doing something like digging a hole. And he calls me to him and he says, "Louise, you read this." And it was some astrological text. And from then on, the whole Mirabai undertaking came into a kind of fruition. So I'll just recite the first poem, and for all the Dharma practitioners still left on this planet, let's hope we can do something however small. Okay. In Brajabasa, just the first verse. Me to giridara dusara na he koi. Jaki sura moramut kutta, mirapati soi. Padmat bad bahandu apanana koi. Chinriki kuakana kehekari he koi. And in English, the whole poem is my love is only giridara nagara. Crowned like a peacock, he is my lord. Let it be said that I have no honor. I do not live for family or friend. Mm-hmm. Sitting with saints, I lost my demeanor. Tearing my sari, I dressed in a sheet. I traded my pearls for a garland of flowers, and with tears I planted the vine of love. Now that vine is full with its fruit, bliss. I pressed on the milk churn with deep devotion. Leaving the butter, I drank the buttermilk. In bhakti, I was joyful. In the world, I wept. Mira the servant sings, Gopala, save me. Okay. Now, moving on to Tokyo, I'd like to say,
When was that written?
huh?
When was that written?
Oh, that was written
By Mirabai.
in the 16th century.
16th century.
Mirabai's dates, but hagiography is always approximate, are 1458 to 1510. She was to be the first Hindu queen of North India, but she just said, I don't want any of, well, it's not she said. She was educated in the town of Chittorgarh to be the first first Hindu queen of North India. But there was this movement of the Bhakti Kal, the path of love in the Hindu understanding, from a small town in South India to the north of India, and then in 5 generations, disseminated through North India. You remember Shyam Das? He was a great expert, and he was actually a lineage holder in this tradition. So the guru of Kabir was Ramananda, but the guru of Mirabai, very, very high aristocratic caste, was a beggar, an unknown secret lineage holder named Raidas. And he gave to Mirabai a small statue of Krishna, which in their tradition contained the energy of the transmission. And so she developed into this very, very powerful yogini. And like even in our modern times, people of those kinds of well, all people, but just because you're a princess or a queen doesn't mean that you're not going to be murdered one day for any kind of reason that presents itself. So various attempts were made on Mira's life when it was understood she was such a freak and she didn't care about the court. I think her princely husband died, and then she was at the mercy of the king and his family, and they just completely disapproved of her, as she says, demeanor. So they tried to kill her, and she in her poetry she recounts how she overcame these various attempts. But the esoteric understanding is that Mirabai was an adept. An adept, a greatly realized being who takes the human form to assist and enlighten others. So in that form of princess turned vagabond, turned, the priceless jewel of the court. But when they came to ask her to return, she just said, fuck off. See you in the morning. And when they opened the temple doors in the morning, she had disappeared. And nobody knows. According to legend, she left her sari draped over the Krishna Murti. Other people say she wandered through North India. Of course, we can't know in what form she disappeared. Okay, let's see. There's one thing I think I forgot to say. Mirabai. Yeah, okay, and the Mirabai books are over there if you want to take a look at them. Many people have translated Mirabai. But I felt, as a young woman, I felt that these translations were a little bit exaggerated to the salon seduction side of things, where somehow I knew that there was an esoteric interpretation of the various ways in which the Ishtadevata or the Yidam could be worshipped in India. So her path was the path of service. Yeah. Anything else? No, that's Mirabai. Okay, thank you. Well, before we close, I want to recite an early poem from that same great tradition. And this is from the 8th century in South India. There was, like that whole thing of rejecting the status quo was always existed. So in India, in South India, there was a rejection of the rigidity of the Advaitic philosophy. And there was an insistence that emotion provide the tool to realization. And then there was, of course, these lineage of gurus that made this kind of practice possible. So one of the early ones was also a woman. There's a great book called Speaking of Shiva, with the translations of Mahadevi Vakya, is her name, and three of the other great poets of that time. Alambu Prabhu was one. And they worshipped Shiva. They worshipped Shiva.
Yeah, I have copies of it.
This is pre-Krishna, in various forms. And she worshipped Krishna as my Lord, white as jasmine. And that poem in the translation, excellent translations, is, O mother, I burned in a flameless flame. O mother, I suffered a bloodless wound. O mother, I tossed without pleasure. Loving you, my Lord, white as jasmine, I wandered through unlikely worlds. Just to make our way into Japan, I started to say that in the time I was translating, most of these translations of Mirabai were like love, like fuck me sort of. In their rhapsodic thing, their rhapsodic language usage was all about this sort of, outward play. Nothing wrong with that, but it was just a little bit, it concealed her actual attainment. So I determined, no, I'm gonna try to understand what was happening and try to find some way to put this ardor into a contemporary usage. And I actually used the haiku, Japanese understanding of condensing, minimal. And Henri Michaud, who was supporting all of these efforts in Paris, said to me, he said, that was very clever. Okay, so as you probably know, I got to Japan somehow. Love drew me to Japan. First the crush, but then Norbu. Namkanobu was teaching in Japan, and I just saw that the window was open, and I could go, and it was cheap. Really, it cost that time to go from Rome to Osaka, exactly what it cost to go from Rome to Amsterdam and back on the train. So I got there, and I had been working very, very concentratedly on kind of cut-up technique and collage and poetry. And I myself felt completely cut up. And I used the Japanese experience, and especially the musicians. I had some supernal contact to certain of these musicians, to somehow return to the very rhapsody that I had neglected. Of course, these kinds of relations didn't flower as one might have wished, but they were very, very interesting, and a lot of good music was produced also. So here's a poem for one of those people. Oh, wait, no, I should read a little bit first from Tokyo, honoring our advertisement and Sam. Okay, in Tokyo, very, very interesting experience, fantastic. And I want to read you, not now, but before I close, just the opening of a piece that I wrote for Kazuko Shirashiri, who at that time was in what ordinary people might call dementia. And I was told, like, don't even try. But of course, this great, great poet, maybe her sense of timing is off, or she doesn't remember where some cafe is, but her understanding of the poetic process was completely intact. And she was so kind to me that I really have to say that Kazuko was a major reason that I could integrate into the life of Japan, just this great woman poet, without any competitive sensibility whatsoever, embracing me as she did, thanks to Kazuko. Okay, here's a series of rather rhapsodic poems, and I'm calling it after the Manyoshu, which is the first anthology of Japanese poetry, classical Japanese poetry, and in English, the 10,000 Leaves. At the scintillating edge, where your dark hairs meet mine on the altar of supreme sacrifice, did we make it in the leaves, the Ardenna, never had it so good to know you, or was it? What intoxicant in your dark hair or in your gaze, perceived in its entirety? I am confounded by error, wishing you would talk to me, fear and subterfuge. The spying nations get to us. They can spy the shit out of me and still not know my name. Out here, wishing I knew you better. I knew you well enough to know you'd hate this place. I keep my feelings to myself, but everyone knows that I'm still alone on this green night with these green walls in the Ringen Cafe. Something going on. Wish I could just sleep out here. Hate the way the city closes down at 12. 12, she said, was the number of samsara. Did she have any idea what she was talking about? I wrote about overtones. You'd think I was patenting a curse. I had to leave the circle, but I never left you. This was written in Nishio Geikubo in Tokyo. The next poem in this little trilogy is called My Concubine's Refuge. It's up in arms, but whose and what kind? The kind used to kill ladybugs and everything else, or the wooden ones attached to the 1,000 Buddhas in the Sanju Senjendo. I couldn't figure out if the only female protector was referred to as it because the curators didn't know English, or because her gender was somehow criminal enough to be concealed, like mine. It's the end of an era. I've heard it said before. Instantaneous fire in the mind, in the forest of emotion. It was okay if I played, but if I spoke. I'm sorry, mental illness, she said. The verdict of the straight edge. Again the walls of my concubine's refuge. For whose recital at the edge of the cliff. And I wish it hadn't happened in this way. This was written for Nick Cave, the death of his son, and also in that town, Nishio-Gekubo in Tokyo. And the final poem is this one, in this more rhapsodic style. It's called One. It was a hard day's night. It was a hard day, then a hard night. You had a friend or two, but nowhere near. And what about that etheric dance hall, where moonlight fell in circles on your transparent shoulders? The water fell before you, never tested for isotopes or cesium. You didn't drink. Herbs protected you from the garden of extinction. A loving hand handed you the water mirror late one night in a dream. Late one night, you wanted to hear him play acoustic guitar more than anything else. He thought you wanted to fuck him in secret texts, the mystery of these things revealed. A syllabic speech extracted from the Siddham. You learned it instantaneously. Then they threw you out of the cafe. An old story, very old, he said. He said you were too old. I said nothing, but sat for days and nights with my bow and rosin, from whose tree the bliss extinguished, as I gazed out at the radioactive streets and the umbrella held so far from tomorrow, so close to home. That's written in Chiyodo in Tokyo. Okay, and there I mentioned the word Siddham because in fact modern Japan hiragana is actually derived from very old Sanskrit called Siddham. Okay, so now, is this timing? Please tell me when the time is up.
You're fine.
Keep going.
Okay, because I didn't realize I'd go so far into Mirabai. But this
Oh,
being,
wonderful, thank you for
please,
that.
but also this being the territory of Shyamdas, you know, one of the truly great scholars of our time, respected as such in India and here. His spirit is
And
still,
Shamdas.
yeah, his spirit is still with us. Okay, here's a poem. I want to say something about Japan. Karmic effects. Japan has a great transparency. There was never a major genocide there, as far as I know. So traces of the old culture are still everywhere. And there is a kind of, it's a strange thing, but it's almost like the invisible worlds are a little less separated there. Very, very, very interesting experiences. Okay, here's a poem. By this time I'm really kind of hardened, but anyway, it's called The Opiate. The color of the opiate envisioned your future. Tired the hand that lay on stone. And then a light appeared from nowhere, and you followed it. One day a voice clearly spoke and said, "This for the following millennium," and you followed it. You followed it to the edge of the town. A bar, no one inside, and then a pretty girl in a rosin skirt, and she says, "Welcome. You are taken in, better than the opiate, the girl who knew her way around. And you took her where she'd never been. Thanks," she said in the morning. A trace of seaweed, strange to find it in the desert. Or was it? The oasis was yours, a gift, in fact. It's from Tokyo. Okay, now I'd like to take the opportunity. Oh no, wait. Tomorrow is Mother's Day, right? So I'd like to take the opportunity just to read the very, very first part of a long piece I wrote called The Madness of Kasakoshi. Because in a very great way, with this absence of rivalry, this complete mothering spirit that she had, but also a kind of poetic presence that was truly remarkable. And even when her mind was, quote unquote, not what it used to be, she was the most incredible reader. And she read a poem we read together one time. And all I did really was sing Alan's songs because she loved Alan so much. And people told me that she jumped up and started clapping just to hear his songs again. But at any rate, it's nice to tell you. She read a poem called The Hudson River, and she read it in Japanese, and accompanied by a bass player. And you would think that she was the Hudson River. It was so profound, such a great spirit. So I'm just going to read the first page or so. It's called The Madness of Kazuko Shirashiri, the Poet's Domain. I'm here to do, I have a job. Unusual. I have a job to do. Record Kazuko Shirashiri. I stall, I've heard she's sick, a form of poetic dementia. Finally, fate leads me to her, with unusual consequences, or are they? The visit marks the end of the Tokyo relation. With young guitarist who, upon hearing I have given his phone number to the mad woman, chooses this with which to deliver the final blow. Poor choice. He should be happy to have contact with this great personage, but he's mean, he's weak, and he's mean. Therefore, Therefore, amphetamine left over. Not therefore. Oh, and he's mean. Therefore, amphetamine left over from the military ruins a few generations of Japanese. I later learn. Kazuko may be mad, but she is a poet through and through. She is a pro-feminist, a proto-feminist, same time as Valli in Italy, i.e. she gets the message long before the pro-feminist media infused. She dresses in a way that recalls the ancient embroidered kimono, but she's dressed to kill as a Western woman. As a woman at 77 in New York City, she is ravishing on stage with her scrolls and accompanist playing flute. Seasons of sacred lust still become her. Enter Louise. Hello, I'm a friend of Ira's. Oh yes, he slept here. And Alan's, is he dead? She asks. She knows he is. My floating mother city is her lament, both for her mother and for Alan. Alan gives birth, she will understand. For Alan. I have heard the two read in Amsterdam. Unforgettable. Kazuko reading the original Japanese, Alan reading her translation in English. I am a silent spectator. In Tokyo, she is amazed. Oh, you were there? Yes. Kazuko may have lost her memory, but she has not lost her presence as a poet, as a woman poet in the world. She is the only person in Tokyo to openly embrace me. She delivers shiatsu massage, tells me I'm her sister, is sorry I can't stay the night. No one comes to visit me anymore. She lives with her partner, Noble, in a small flat in Nishioge-kubo, out on the JR line. She says she has an extra place for her books. I can live there if I want. I am not alone. None of this may come to pass, but it shows the degree to which she has understood my hidden. Thank you. What about the time?
What about it?
Huh?
What about the time?
Time, is it over?
How do you feel? How do you feel?
I feel that just,
Yeah, keep going, keep going.
well, I feel on a symbolic level, I would love to read, oh dear.
Yeah, that would.
That one you dropped, that one little piece of paper you
threw
dropped
something.
special.
Okay, it doesn't matter, Everything is fine. I would just like to read, this is a new book. It started to come into focus when I got sort of trapped in Japan during during the COVID era. And I'm just terrible at doing anything remote, as anyone who has contact with me knows. Okay, I apologize. And this book therefore took, very, 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 very long time to do. And finally, a friend of mine intervened, and he had the sort of stability or something, and also the digital apparatus to do this remote, that's the word, remote work. Well, so I haven't had a chance to read it ever, and this is just the proof copy.
What's the title?
Oh,
What's the title?
Oh, it's called Where I Stand in Angel, and that is a extract from Allen Ginsberg's Kaddish, from the fifth canto, I think. And actually, well, tomorrow's Mother's Day, so I'm giving this pre-Mother's Day. Okay, I'm just talking about women here. But anyway, actually the cut-up technique, according to Brian Geisen, not actually, it is suggested, indeed insisted upon, by Terry Wilson, who was living in Rue Gilcourt when the cut-up technique was being developed, at least in part. We don't know the history completely, and I certainly wasn't there. But he says that the texts of Machi Glabdram were used, and Machi Glabdram was a 10th century yogini, and she's the founder of the great practice called the Chud, and Chud means to cut in Tibetan. And we were trying to figure out with some friends, like how did they get to the Chud? And then we realized that Alexander David Neal had already published her works in French by that time. So the
That was
probable
early 19th century.
so the probable
Early
source
20th century.
the probable source is her reportage. But at any rate, Terry Wilson brings up the not fact. He brings out the fact. I can't say it. She was never acknowledged. But we understand, and suddenly Raymond Foy is here, who knew these people. I didn't. But that the cut-up, it was a metaphysical effort. The light shows, etc. This was all to open the mind. But it was not understood that, like, the Machi Glabdram practice, which was a gift to her 9 sons, was in any way involved. So I tried to bring that out in this book. And in a way I was sneaky. And I took Alan's beautiful Where I Stand in Angel. I appropriated it. Okay, I'm just going to read one little poem from this. Yeah. Wait. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, no, I'm going to read 2. Okay, this first is, what goes around comes around. You don't need a Sanskrit dictionary to spell out the word karma. Remember, good deeds outweigh the others. Even writing a poem can be one of those good deeds. With right intention, you are drowning in the heavenly aroma, but you do not sink. To the contrary, orgasmic heat in magenta bloom. You were known for your fragility, but you weren't weak. In the age of mechanical perception, only agrofolia, or the scent of sandalwood. In the room at midnight, honor her. Thank you. Beautiful. One more?
Yeah, one more, yeah.
Okay. From this book, there is one more actually. Okay, George and Susan Krosh are here. And when I first came from Italy, I was really, like this, kind of like a nun, something like a nun in my headspace.
Did you stay in Valley in Italy?
Huh?
Did you visit Valley in Italy?
No, but I visited her at the Chelsea Hotel.
Yeah.
But I did go, actually at Raymond Foy's suggestion, I wrote a review for Babi Yara's biography of Valley. And for that, I did go to her I did go to Positano, and I went to her, place there. And I spent a lot of time there. I got very sick, actually. It's interesting what happened. But we called Ira from up there.
I bet.
Okay, I wanted to read one poem. Where is it? Well, I'll read a couple of them now that I have a chance. Okay, here's one. All right, I'll read a series of this. If you get bored, please stop. To write a poem in the vanished city of liberté, égalité, fraternité, dream yoga igniting my A, comes to the tower, bedlam ensues. If the river of love runs beneath the river of appearance, why doesn't it appear to LLL? And this is a poem, it's for Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher's office is finally closed at the Lord of Commons. Camera de Lord, they say. La Nazionale. Oh yeah, that's in Italy, they're reporting about this, La Nazionale. She has dementia. The politicians are all suffering from the strange disease. And it's not only now, it's then and then. The history of repulsion. Merigar celebrates 30 years of what? Buildings? All that money could have gone as well to the local orphanage. Building for the future? Whose? If not now, when? And that's a quote from Hillel, the Jewish scholar. If I am not for myself, who is for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? If not now, when? Okay, you want to hear a few more?
Yes.
So then, this poem from Venice. Venice. Always wonder how and why I get into these situations. In New York City, I sit around until something happens in my head. Then I write it down and it's a poem. Sometimes the method works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, and here, oh yeah. Oh yeah. I lucidly ride, I'm traveling around. I lucidly ride the wheels along the river. No, I lucidly ride the wheels along the river, the Amstel. I am community. I speak of radishes, of milk, thistle. Whose breast? Rediscover. I am that. Am I that I am? Still the morning's composition lists the songs of the angel. Oh wait, wait for me in time. Now, it is now. I call and I sing. I am something like a solitary bird, and I doubt this will change very much. Too bad, but I accept it.
Right, exactly.
Oh, this is fun. I like it. This is very funny. I tried to play my music for you. You only thought of yourself. You never asked questions. You didn't clean up. How come I liked you so much? It's easy to project on those beautiful guys, said Debbie. Yes, we have a soft heart for those of our own kind. That was a guest in the tower. I want to read this very specific poem. Let me try to find it. It's called Joel. Oh yeah, here. Okay, I do want to say, so I arrived in this country and I'm just in this state, this devotional state for Norval for years. But somehow I get here and he tells me to stay here. He insists I stay here. And I'm thinking in my mind, oh yes, but the truck drivers, because they're kind of my friends, the truck drivers, and the simple people in the villages. I never really could get along with the Buddhists too well, it's very hidden. So anyway, so I'm thinking, what about the truck drivers? And he says, there are so many truck drivers in Italy. but only one here who loves your sister love, you know. So I do end up staying, and I somehow land, poor Susan and George. Oh yeah, remember, they direct me. Remember how crazy that was? Susan asked me, what am I doing? And I'm like looking for somebody. And this person's father was a disc jockey, famous disc jockey. And she says, oh, well, there's someone over there. Remember? And Duchess kind of says, someone over there, some famous old disc jockey. So I call. And actually the person I'm looking for answers the phone. It's very, very strange. Okay, so I apologize to you too for my lack of demeanor. Okay, so here's a poem called The Two Joels. The Two Joels. One was a junkie and died a bad death in LA. An excellent musician. I spent a lot of time with him. I wouldn't say he was a nice person, but he could feel me. And but he could feel me and he could relate to my body to a certain extent. That is to say, he touched me. Most people just avoided me like I was from some other planet or something. After he died, another Joel came into my life. At first I thought Joel 1 was the reincarnation, at first I thought Joel 2 was the reincarnation of Joel 1. I'm not sure why, but we were friends right from the time of meeting, when he was 3 months old or something like that. And remember, Joel 1 had almost died in the same hospital where Joel 2 was born, or at least the same town. The interesting thing is that Joel 2, even as a small child, had the same fearlessness and trust as far as I was concerned. He would get very close to me and know I was never going to abuse him or hurt him in any way. The difference between the two Joels was really that Joel 2 was a very nice and gifted person and was going to make it in his life somehow. Of course, I could only relate to Joel 2 in a very simple way, but he enjoyed correcting my readings of Pinka, for example, and we both laughed at the evidently psychedelic slant of this book for children. But on one occasion, taking a photo of him playing the xylophone, he was very precocious musically. I did feel I was photographing the same person I had photographed more than a decade earlier. But as there is no way to verify this, I will only say both Joel 1 and Joel 2 were very cool people who did not mind, in fact, seemed to enjoy being close to me. Okay, thank you.
Are we done?
I think that's.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank you all for coming and ask please any donations you could make. There's a box over there for donations, and thank you so much, Louise. Thank you so much, Sam, for organizing this.
Oh, I'd like to say too, if anybody wants the Mirabai books or a book called Rasa,
Oh, good.
which came from the same period, they're over there, or she can get them for you. Oh, this is the same Mirabai, of course.
And Sheev has a beautiful bookstore back there, and I have a little store over here.
Hi.